Well, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that there are more connections between Thor and Edgar than there are between Loki and Edmund. No. Again, no. No, it's not that you're wrong. Just, oh. Hello. Welcome to Teacup For One. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees. A while ago, I did a video that compared Edgar from King Lear to Thor from Thor. The basic argument was that Thor's origin story in the first Thor movie mirrors Edgar's transformation and journey in King Lear. Both characters go through an experience that involves suffering and therefore enlightenment, putting them into a place where they are, in the end, worthy of being a great ruler, or in the case of Thor, an avenger. But there's one thing I did not touch on at all, and that is the jealous brother who sets all of that suffering and therefore enlightenment into motion through his own deceit, manipulation, and lies. That's right. Today we're talking about Loki and Edmund. Now, surprisingly, there aren't as many cut and dry connections between Loki and Edmund as there are between Edgar and Thor. And honestly, that makes a lot of sense because, spoiler alert, Edmund dies. Like I said in the other video, Edgar makes for a great origin story because everything he goes through helps him to become a hero, much like how we need Thor to become a hero for the rest of the films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Edgar's story ends with the promise of great things to come, whereas Edmund's story just ends because he dies. And, I mean, obviously Loki's never going to die. When you think he's dead, he just comes back in another movie. Then he dies again, and he comes back in another movie. And when you finally think this is it, he's actually 100% dead this time. No questions, ifs, ands, or buts about it.
No resurrections this time.
That's when he gets a TV show. I'm not complaining though, Loki's amazing. So, suffice it to say, Loki does not mirror Edmund beat for beat the same way that Thor mirrors Edgar. But I feel like you can still use Loki to better understand where Edmund is coming from. First of all, let's look at their family situation. This is the starting point for both characters, and it's the thing that bonds the two of them the strongest. They both start off living in their brother's shadow. They're the second born, and so they are not the ones who are going to collect all the land, all the titles, or all the inheritance. And on top of that, they are both the illegitimate child in the family. Now, Edmund has known he's the illegitimate kid in the family his entire life. His dad won't let him forget it. In fact, it's the first thing his dad says when he introduces him to new people. The conversation basically goes, "Hello, my name is Gloucester, and this is my whole son Edmund, and I wasn't married to his mother. Oops." And after enduring a lifetime of this, Edmund decides that he's going to claw his way to the top of a society that would otherwise shun him. It's all there in one of his first speeches. "Wherefore should I stand in the plague of custom, and permit the curiosity of nations to deprive me? For that I am some 12 or 14 moonshines lag of a brother? Why, bastard? Wherefore base?" See, that is exactly the same problem that Loki has, because first of all, he is trapped by the plague of custom being second in line to the throne. Everything's just going to go to Thor because he's the oldest, or so he thinks, because then he discovers that he's not even Odin's son, and that just fuels his insecurities.
You know, it all makes sense now why you favored Thor all these years, because no matter how much you claim to love me,
you can never have a frost giant sitting on the throne of Asgard. So once this backstory is established for both characters, Loki and Edmund both set into motion to turn their fathers against their perfect brothers. In Edmund's case, he tells his father that Edgar is conspiring to have him killed because he wants his inheritance and he wants it now. But instead of questioning Edgar on it, Gloucester, the dad, just decides, "Oh, Edmund, you must be telling the truth, I'll believe you," and then he pretty much on the spot just goes on the anti-Edgar team. Loki's tactics are a little bit less direct than Edmund's. He doesn't just outright tell a lie to Odin. Instead, he pushes Thor towards behavior and towards actions that he knows will cause a rift between Thor and Odin, and those are eventually what result in Thor's banishment. Actually, the way Loki approaches manipulation in this case is more like Iago from Othello, but we'll talk about that in the future. Moving on. However, Loki does take a page out of Edmund's book when he's manipulating Thor. There's that scene about halfway through the movie when S.H.I.E.L.D. has captured Thor. Loki shows up and he just blatantly lies and says, "Father is dead, Mother doesn't want you to come home." And Thor believes him without a shadow of a doubt and shapes all of his choices from that point on purely based on that lie. So clearly, all of these characters, Gloucester, Thor, Edgar, they are investing so much trust and love into this person that we, the audience, know they should not be trusting at all. So if they do in fact love them and trust them this much, it just makes us think to ourselves, why are Loki and Edmund doing these things? First of all, it's easy to blame it on the whole illegitimate child thing, because these characters' very DNA is made up of something that makes them other than their family or other than the norm. Edmund has an entire speech where he's summoning the gods of nature to stand up for bastards, and for the majority of the movie it seems like Loki is actually in cahoots with the frost giants, who we eventually find out he is biologically tied to. He's one of them. But before we jump to that conclusion, let's look at Edmund's second speech where he talks about the excellent foppery of the world. It's actually really contradictory to his first speech, which is all about embracing his role as a bastard and giving himself over to the gods of nature, because in this speech, Excellent Foppery of the World, he's talking about how people come up with excuses and blame nature to avoid being accountable for their own actions. They'll blame it on the sun, the moon, the stars, anything but themselves. He fully disregards this argument and even uses himself as an example and says, I should have been what I am if he were born legitimately. Basically, even if his parents were married, he's convinced he would still be this manipulative, vile person. It's a pretty great thesis, and if you need further proof, just look at Loki. He's a living, breathing example of that. Because remember, Loki doesn't find out that he is actually a frost giant until after Edgar's banishment. At that point, he's already put everything into motion for his plan, and in fact, his plan, which never changes, is to destroy the frost giants. He would have been doing this even if he was the legitimate son of Odin. So that begs the question again. Why are they doing these things? Well, Edmund's motives are kind of vague and open to a lot of interpretation, so let's start with Loki, because Loki outright tells us why he does these things.
To prove to Father that I am the worthy son. I never wanted the throne! I only ever wanted to be your equal.
He never wanted the throne, he only wanted to be Thor's equal. Regardless of their biological family ties, they are still the second-born sons in a society that just by default gives everything to the firstborn. The firstborn sons are the ones who get the land, the entitlement, and all the glory. Edmund does, however, give us a tiny shred of insight into what his motive is beyond that jealousy. Right before Edmund dies, after being in an epic battle between Edgar, who's wearing a mask, he finds out that the two women that he's in the middle of a giant love triangle with, who are also sisters and the daughters of King Lear, have died in a murder-suicide, all because they were in love with him in kind of like a crazy ex-girlfriend kind of way. It's a very complicated play, King Lear is. The point is, when Edmund is about to die, and he finds out that these two women, not one, but two women, died because of their love for him, he says, "Yet Edmund was beloved." He tries to repent for all the evil he did throughout the entirety of the play by admitting to and trying to reverse the hit he put out on King Lear and Cordelia's life. But I mean, it's too little too late, because it's a Shakespearean tragedy, so everyone's gonna die. But the point is, it is completely out of character for Edmund based on everything we've seen him do to this point in the play. It seems like it's wholly motivated by the weird, twisted sense of peace he gets from seeing that people loved him enough to die for him. Not just to die for him, to kill for him. Almost like it's justifying what he did for love. What he did for love. Look, your eyes are gone. Loki was also motivated by love. The love that he wanted from his father. That's why he wanted to be Thor's equal. But the big difference here is that Loki doesn't get a "yet Loki was beloved" moment. In fact, it's kind of the opposite of that. Right at the end, when he's hanging on for seemingly dear life, he says to Odin something to the effect of, "I could have done it, Father," and you just see the disappointment in Odin's eyes.
I could have done it, Father! I could have done it! For you!
doesn't get that moment of peace that Edmund got before he died. So what does Loki do? He just decides to descend further into villainy, and in effect, it becomes an amazing origin story for him to be the villain that we need for the Marvel Cinematic Universe to thrive. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that for today. Well, folks, that concludes yet another episode of Teacup for One. But one very important question. How adorable is Loki? It's Loki as a cat. This was actually illustrated by a Canadian artist named Alana McCarthy. She has a great Facebook site and I believe Etsy shop called Geeky Pet. This is in no way a sponsorship or advertisement. I just really like spreading the word about independent artists who do really creative, quirky, and visually beautiful work. Not to mention it's a cat dressed like a supervillain. I'll put a link to Alana's work in the comment section down below, and I highly recommend that you go check out more of her stuff because it is adorable. If you like geeky stuff and you like pets, you will like Alana McCarthy's Geeky Pets. Thanks for joining us again today, everyone. Please let me know in the comment section down below what Shakespeare play you would like me to do a video about next. And don't forget, check out the other videos on the channel if you want to hear me talk more about Shakespeare or even Disney, or even follow the droid beauty pageant that I am currently sponsoring. All you need to do to subscribe to the channel is click on my face. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Matt out.